Good evening. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win, the Parents Edition. I'm Attorney Vince Davis, and I'm joined by my co-host, Miss Georgette Truen. Miss G, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank
And
you.
of course, we have a very special guest tonight. We have Shamra. Shamra, how are you?
I am good for under the condition.
Right. How can you be doing good dealing with CPS?
Exactly.
So, Shamra, where are you from?
I am from Tenino, Washington.
What? I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm from Tenino, Washington.
What county is that in Washington?
Thurston.
Very good. So, what's going on with you and CPS in the state of Washington?
So I had CPS show up to my house June 13th of last year. I got a call from my boyfriend, my kid's dad, and he's like, "Hey, CPS is here. I need you to come home from work." So I drove 45 minutes home, talked to the worker. He said that we were refusing to take our children to the doctors, and that my son had an ear infection, and that we knew about it and we wouldn't take him in. He did have an ear infection. He told me about it the night before, and I had gave him medicine. The next morning when I was getting ready to go to work, I made him an appointment. So by the time the CPS worker showed up, I already had an appointment made for him for the following day. And then we had to make dentist appointment stuff because they were lacking dental care during COVID. I didn't take them in, and then COVID got over, and I was working so much. I should have taken them in. I just didn't. But he ended up closing that whole case. And like a month later, there was another call. So we found out the calls that were coming in. So altogether, there was 4 reports. So the first 2 of them were my boyfriend's crazy ex making these calls, and she's since admitted to this. He showed up to my house, walked through my house, made sure all of our weapons were secure and everything was fine. And then that was that. He's like, "Oh, I need to see your kids once a month." And I was like, "Okay, And so I think we talked to him, like 3 times between June and November. Because the whole CPS had got called, my son, who has a different dad, ended up taking my son from me, and I got super depressed. And I got really, really sick, and come to find out, about around the end of October, beginning of November, I was pregnant, and I didn't know. And I wasn't supposed to have more kids. The doctor told me if I had more kids, it was probably going to kill me. It was very unlikely me or the baby would survive. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to risk my life, or am I going to terminate this baby? And then, so I ended up using. I relapsed, and 3 days later, I went into labor. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning in labor. I had my daughter in the back of an ambulance because I knew that something was wrong. So I called the ambulance, even though I've had a home birth with my other children. And I did have an appointment with a midwife to get checked out. It was actually for that same day. But I did end up using. So she tested positive, and I knew she would, but it was either risk her life and my life, or call and make sure that there was somebody there to help. And so I did. And then, so they put a hold on her at the hospital. And I was incoherent for 4 days. The whole time I was in the hospital, pretty much by myself. And I had to have a mental health assessment and the crisis team come in because I got super depressed. They ended up clearing me and letting me go home. The day after I came home, we had a meeting with CPS about what we were going to do with my daughter, Arabella. They didn't really explain anything to us. They're just like, oh, you're going to have to sign a VPA because no matter what, you're not going to get your daughter. And they want to give my daughter to my mom. My mom was mentally, physically, and sexually abusive to me my entire childhood and has told me to my face that she hates me and that I was a mistake. So I didn't want my daughter going to her. So my friend Tia said that, hey, you can sign a guardianship over to me, when you get your life together and you get everything figured out with CPS, we'll make plans and arrangements for her to come home. I was like, okay. And, so I told the caseworker, they showed up to my house November 22nd. I had my daughter on the 11th, had the meeting for CPS on the 15th. And then he showed up on the 22nd, which is nowhere in any of the paperwork that he gave me, the discovery saying that he was ever at my house at all. But I told him, I was like, I'm not going to sign the VPA form because I don't want my mom having my kids for any reason. And I'm going to send guardianship over to my friend Tia. And Tia, she has money. She was physically, financially, and emotionally able to take care of Arabella and give Arabella the care that she needed. And she was like right down the road from me, so I could still have that relationship with my daughter. And I told him that all of this, and I told him, I was like, okay, I'm still going to do the UAs. I'm still going to do everything that you are wanting me to do. And I even signed the consent form and went in to do the UAs and stuff for him. And he instantly was extremely upset. He ended up going down and talking to Tia, the person I signed custody to. And she's like, she called me after he left. And she's like, if we don't go down and do this right now, you're not going to be able to. He's not going to let it happen. And so we went down that day and we sent guardianship papers over. During that time, after that was November 22nd. Over the next month, I went in, I did a couple of my UAs, but he was like telling people my personal information about my case that he like shouldn't have been because he wouldn't even tell me my case details. And I more than once asked him to stop. I wrote his supervisor and I asked it, I was like, hey, this is what's going on. Is there any way to make him quit or take him off my case or whatever? But because I don't like that he's sharing information with people that he shouldn't be. The UAs I did take, I passed every one of them. On January 3rd, Tia came up to my house with my daughter to let me see her, and she was like hysterical, crying. And she's like, Sebastian told me that he's going to take your kids and that it doesn't matter what you do, how clean your house is, what you say, he's going to find the littlest thing to take your kids. And I was like, no way, he hasn't said anything to me. I haven't heard from him in weeks. And she's like, no, that's what he said. And so the next day I wrote him and I was like, hey, my kids are up to the date on their doctor's appointments. They're doing excellent doing homeschooling. Like they were like fantastic. And he acted like everything was cool. And then the next morning he sent me a message and he goes, hey, my coworker, Maddie, is going to bring late Christmas presents to your kids. Sorry that they're late. I'm going to have her do a walkthrough of the house too. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, but it's going to be Maddie. And I was like, okay. Well, a couple of hours go by, and he pulls up to my house with a CPS van and a sheriff. And for one, like, I know my gate was locked when he got there, so he had to unlock my gate, which I know that Tia knew how to do that, so I'm pretty sure Tia unlocked it. Or somebody told him about how to do it. Anyways, he told me that he was taking my daughter and wanted to know where my other kids were. They were at their grandpa's. And there was nothing I could do about it. The only person I could give that could come and get my daughter Serenity out of CPS was, of course, my mother. And like, he knows all of the trauma my mom put me through. And he just didn't care. And so he gave me the sheriff gave me the piece of paper as they were getting ready to leave, and he had filled it out before he ever got to my house because he had to go back and cross out my other kids' names. And he just sat there and he's like, "There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do." And he like stood in my living room and he's like, "Yeah, your house is clean, but I'm just tired of dealing with you. So I'm taking your kids." And that's exactly what he did. I was then like total traumatized by it. And so I like didn't know what to do. So we ended up the next day having a meeting with CPS and signing the VPA form for all 4 of our kids. And then it like I started to like, okay, what's really going on? And so I wrote the district, like head of the district. His name is Hunter Ross. And he's told me he was gonna look into it. Well, apparently he did, because about a week later, Sebastian calls Tia and goes, "She shouldn't have reported me, and now she's never getting her kids back." And I have proof of all of this. And then, you know, so it's been like a month and a half or so, and he, on March 6th, he revoked my VPA, said that I wasn't complying with things, but all that they wanted done, they wanted my house clean, they wanted my drug and alcohol assessment and a mental health assessment. I've done my mental health assessment, and my house is completely spotless. And they said I wasn't complying with anything. And so they revoked my VPA and placed my kids with my mom and my uncle. No, there's nothing I can do. There's like, in the paperwork, I literally have everything in it is a lie, and I have messages and screenshots and photos, videos, everything proving it. I've wrote and called and talked to attorney after attorney, and nobody wants to help. Nobody cares. And my kids are traumatized. My stepsons, they walk around with backpacks full of all of their stuff now because they don't know where they're gonna stay that night. And my daughter, she's she's been sick the entire time, and she's never been sick like that before. Her and my youngest son, they cry daily. My youngest son, he's like, his hands are like messed up and red and bruised and stuff because he's hitting stuff, because he just wants to come home. And I go and visit him 3 times a week, and every time, like, when it's time to say bye, it's like it breaks them. And it's like they have me doing supervised visits for zero reason. Even the person who supervises my visits looked over my report and stuff and said, "There's nothing in the report saying why my kids are taken or why I have supervised visits, and that it doesn't make sense." It's been really hard, and he's took my kids out of spite because I didn't let him take my daughter. And he was having people call and make false reports to the point it was so bad he had to be reminded by a cop that I have civil rights and he's violating them. Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
I'm at a loss on what to do. My attorney, she won't, that was assigned to me by CPS. She won't do anything. I've like laid out everything in front of her, like gave her everything that I possibly need, and she still told me that she's like, we're gonna probably end up doing dependency, and it's gonna be probably a year or so before you get your kids back. It's like they never should have been taken.
Have you had your disposition hearing and a court ordered you to do any types of services?
No, so we're going to court right now. And when they revoked the BPA, they asked if we were agreed with it or we contested it. We are in the middle of contesting it. But my attorney, she doesn't care. She's pretty much, CPS says something and that's what happens.
Ms. G, what do you think?
Don't hate me. I was working on a contract. Client is at the office, so I apologize. Shamara, I know that your case is in Pennsylvania, correct?
Washington.
Oh, I'm sorry, Washington. I apologize. And the person that was retaliating against you was an officer, correct? Is that?
It was the CPS worker, Sebastian Loins.
Oh, don't say names, baby.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when he said he's gonna take the kids from you because he keeps getting reports against you?
He told me that he was just done dealing with me, and so he was taking the kids, and on the paperwork he said it was because my house was a mess. But he stood in my living room on video and said, I know your house is clean. I'm tired of dealing with you. And he told the person who he was having call and make false reports, there were two of them, that that it didn't matter what I did, what I said, or how clean my house was. He was going to find the smallest thing to take my kids from me. It's like all of it has been out of spite and anger because I signed guardianship of my newborn daughter over to a family that I knew could take care of her and love her.
Where's your daughter right now?
She is at my friend Tia's. She is doing amazing. They have done awesome with her, and I still get to see her and bond with her. I do have to have supervised visits with her just because, she's trying to follow the rules and do things the right way. And so I have supervised visits with her, and, it's a process on her eventually at some point being able to come home. But I don't regret my decision on having her go to them because she's like, you can never tell that she was ever in the NICU. She's absolutely amazing. It's such a happy baby, and they've done awesome with her.
Are you participating in the case plan?
The what?
The disposition case plan, the court orders the judge told you to do counseling, probably substance abuse, drug testing, that type of thing.
So they haven't said to do anything yet, but CPS wanted me to do two different assessments, and they wanted the house cleaned. I've done one of the assessments. And they wanted me to start working. So I have a full-time job now. My house is clean. The only thing I haven't done is my last assessment, and that's just because between my visits and work and everything, I haven't had time to yet. But I have done everything else.
Are you testing?
Yeah, I've been contesting the court. It's gone on for like a month now. And it's just because every court date, my attorneys go, it's like, oh, we can reschedule. Oh, let's push it out 2 weeks. Let's push it out 3 weeks. Like, it's been ridiculous. It's been going on since our first court date was March 8th.
Okay. But I'm not clear. Are you testing clean right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I told my attorney and everything that, you know, I'll go in and take UAs at any time. It's, and I have, and all my UAs have been clean.
Okay, very good. Well, how many clean UAs do you have?
4 of them since I've had my daughter. Just because I can't go in and do a UA unless they refer it to me, or they put a referral in for it, and my caseworker is, well, less than helpful with anything that is beneficial towards me getting my kids back.
Do you have a court-appointed attorney or a private attorney?
It's a court-appointed attorney. I've looked into other attorneys, and everybody like is super interested in my case and everything, and they're like, "Oh, you know, it's an easy case."
I didn't hear what you said.
I've talked to other attorneys and stuff, and I'll tell them my case, and they'll tell me they're interested in it, and that it seems like a really easy win case. But then I tell them, "Oh, you know, I don't really have the money to pay for it right now." They won't help. So that's been a struggle.
No family members to help you or anything like that?
No, not at all. The caseworker, he's literally turned my entire family against me. My mom is fighting me. My dad's fighting me. It's like, and I don't understand really, because I went out of my way to help all of them. They've all lived in my house because they were all homeless. Like, and I'm the bad person because I wouldn't let my mom have my daughter.
How many children do you have involved with them?
So my youngest isn't involved. They can't use her. So there's 4 of them. 2 are biological and 2 are my stepsons of the last like almost 10 years. But they include them as mine.
So how many have they taken away?
4 of them. So I have 6 kids in general, and they've taken 4 of them. The other one's with his dad, and then one's with my friend.
Are you getting along with your dad right now?
I was for up until about, well, I can't even say I'm not getting along with him. I'm not getting along with his wife right now. But my stepsons were both placed with my dad actually. And then CPS told him that he wanted him to do UAs, and he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to jump through the hoops, he said. And so he told CPS to come and get the kids. And so CPS came and got him and took them and placed them with my mom. And so I haven't really talked to them since because I don't want to be around that kind of stuff. I'm trying really hard to keep my life together and do right so I can get my kids back. And if he's using, then I can't be involved with him.
Miss G, what do you think she should do?
I honestly think that she needs to get an attorney. And I think she needs to, in my opinion, I think she has a good lawsuit. If indeed what you're saying is the truth, and I'm sure you are saying the truth.
And I have records of everything. I keep records and details, everything. I have every conversation we've ever had with them. We have videos, we have text messages, emails. Like, I have 2 planners full of information of every CPS visit, everything they've ever said, everything we've ever said. Like, I have records of everything.
But wait, see, you have your mom, right? You have your mom?
No, my mom's fighting against me.
Is your mom the reason why you're in this mess?
Yeah, her and the caseworker ganged up on me when she wanted my daughter and I wouldn't give her to her. She said I stole my child from her. And I don't know how that makes sense in her head, but that is what her
Why did
reasoning
you
is.
steal the child from her? Did she have custody of the child before?
No, Sebastian or the caseworker had told her that he was going to make me sign a VPA form and that she would have custody of my daughter. When I didn't sign the VPA form, it meant she didn't get her, and that upset her. But even before all of this, my mother has a deep hatred towards me, and she always has.
I didn't know that mothers can hate their children. I had no idea that's possible.
Yeah.
But I honestly think you need to. Wow. Did your mom have connection with that social worker
Yeah, they've
before?
been talking and stuff since the very first case back in June of 2022. They have been talking, and like I have messages between my mom and the social worker of like them plotting taking my kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're friends?
I don't know if they knew each other beforehand, but they are all buddy now and seem to be friends because they talk all the time. I've repeatedly said I didn't want my kids around my mom. I've told him why multiple times, and he doesn't care. He's like, oh, it's not up to you anymore. It's not your say. And he's like, oh, because there's not you never filed a report as a child, then it doesn't matter what happened to you.
So you haven't had your jurisdictional and dispositional hearing, it sounds like.
Mm-mm.
Are you and your attorney ready to do that trial?
She says that she is, but she's also straight told me that there's a good chance that I'm not going to get my kids back for at least a year or so. And it's just because she won't turn in anything I give her to turn in. I turned in a self-declaration to her, like for my side, because I want to tell my side of things, and she wouldn't turn it in. Like she's my attorney, but she's only doing it because they are making her do it.
What do
And
you
you
mean?
can tell.
Who's they?
So the CPS workers, they all use the same like attorneys in Thurston County. They all use the same ones, and she got assigned to me by them.
Not by the judge?
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And they're like, it's really sad because you can hear them. So we do court over Zoom, and you can like hear them sitting there talking and stuff before and after the case. Like they're all buddy.
Yeah, that tends to happen in social groups where people, see each other and work with each other, day to day, month to month, year to year. I wonder if they know that you can hear them.
I have no idea. They should, because they knew that we were, know that they're live and stuff on Zoom. It's one of those things where he's like, I can do whatever I want. I don't care.
Well, did you have any questions you wanted to ask me with respect to your case?
Basically, I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss on my kids are on how do I go about dealing with all of it? Because I don't know.
No, you don't have any questions for me?
Just in general of what should I do?
Well, you and your attorney are going to have to get together and plan a strategy for the jurisdictional and dispositional hearing. You're going to have to determine what witnesses you're going to bring, how you're going to cross-examine their witnesses, what documents they're going to bring.
Okay.
What documents need to be subpoenaed.
What's the best way to go about getting a different attorney? One that will actually help me.
Well, if you were in California, you could do what's called a Marsden motion and ask the court to appoint you a new court-appointed attorney. I would guess, I don't know for sure, but I would guess that Washington probably has the same type of, situation if you don't feel that your court-appointed attorney is properly representing you. But that doesn't mean the judge will grant the motion and give you a new attorney. It's just something that you can do. In cases here in California, I see people make Marsden motions asking for a new court-appointed attorney, and I would say the majority of those motions aren't granted. But but I don't know what's going to happen in Washington under Washington law. One of the things you might consider is going around and getting some free consultations or low-cost consultations with attorneys in the area that are familiar with CPS and ask them for some advice. And sometimes you might be given or get an attorney who might charge $50, $100, $150 for a consultation. It might be worth your while to spend that and pay the attorney.
Yeah. Okay. So there's like zero reason for why I have supervised visits. Is there something I can do about that?
Not until after the disposition hearing.
Okay.
The way in California, and I will guess, although I'm not sure that Washington is set up the same way. In California, you have the detention hearing and certain orders are made. And those orders generally stay in place unless everyone agrees until the jurisdictional and the dispositional hearing, because the judge hasn't decided whether the allegations against you are true or false, or whether you pose a risk or a danger to the child right now. And you won't know that until the trial. So I have that happen in a lot of cases that I'm on. There's the detention hearing and then there's the jurisdictional and dispositional hearing. And people think that you can just go back to court anytime and change orders before the trial, and you can't do it. A few months ago, I had a client who thought that you could do that and got mad at me that I wasn't doing it when I couldn't. She fired me and she hired another attorney. And several weeks later, she called me back and said, well, I found out the hard way that what you said was true. You just can't run back to court before the jurisdictional and dispositional hearing.
Yeah.
If you want to really, really challenge the supervised visits, that's something for you and your attorney to do at the detention hearing. But generally, this is just my personal opinion, if they detain your child and then give you unmonitored visitation, why even have a case? There's really no need for a case.
Yeah.
They actually think that for some reason you're a risk or a danger to the children. And it's probably drug related. You mentioned earlier that there was an issue regarding testing positive, and you didn't say that was an erroneous test. So I'll assume that it was a valid test. But when you're a judge and you're given responsibility for children, you tend to be conservative, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if you were the judge and you gave a kid back to a mom who may have been using drugs and something happens to the kid? Guess what happens to your career as a judge?
Yeah.
No more, or they send you to traffic, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a punishment. So the judge, unfortunately, doesn't get a chance to know you personally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know yourself, your family knows you, your friends know you, but the judge doesn't really know you. All he or she knows is what evidence is submitted. And up to this point, let's be real, the only evidence submitted is by the social worker, and that was all negative.
Yeah, and
right?
95% of it's lies.
Right. But you get a chance to prove that and challenge that at the upcoming trial. That's your constitutional right. Now, here's the thing. When the trial comes up, you and your attorney got to be ready. You got to be ready to put on evidence, to call witnesses. I spent a good part of the day today in the trial that I have coming up helping my office prepare subpoenas to go send out to witnesses to make them show up at the trial. So, I mean, witnesses are important.
Are we allowed to call the social worker to the stand?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, that's probably the no-brainer.
Um, is there a certain, I don't know, way you would recommend going about that with him, with hearing the details I've told you?
Well, I can just generally tell you, I haven't reviewed your file or anything, but I would put him on the stand and I would ask him, basically line by line, sentence by sentence, if all the allegations in the petition filed against you are true or false. And if he says they're true, well, Mr. Social Worker, what evidence do you have to support that allegation?
Okay.
Okay. And, you might be able to ask that social worker on the stand, if you were in California doing a disposition, hey, isn't it true that my client is not a danger to the child? You should be, and that's required before they can place the child out of your custody. You'd be surprised how many social workers say, yeah, she's not a danger. Not a danger, then why won't you give her the child back?
Right.
Right. So those are some of the things. But you should definitely sit down on the phone or Zoom or in person with your lawyer and come up with a strategy. Don't just do it by gut level feeling.
Yeah.
Come up with a strategy and then help your attorney implement that strategy. What I like and what I ask sometimes a lot of clients to do is to write me a story of what really happened. And don't sugarcoat it. Be honest with me, because whatever you tell me in writing is confidential, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell anybody, and of course I wouldn't. But then I'll know your side of the story. Sometimes that's the easiest thing to do because, sometimes the attorney doesn't have the time or doesn't find the time to sit down with you face to face. And if you email or send a letter or something, you can tell the attorney. What a client recently did for me is on the smartphone, they have the app where you can record memos. They
Mm-hmm.
recorded about 10 memos that had the whole story on it. And then I listened to them and then I sent them to a website called rev.com and had it transcribed into Word, Microsoft Word. And that was really good because I got to hear it and then I got to read it.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, so you might want to do that for your lawyer. The more you can help your lawyer, the better off you will be. Miss G and I had this discussion last week, and we differ on this. In California at least, and it may be the same in Washington, you're not entitled to have Johnny Cochran as your lawyer. In other words, you're not entitled to have the best lawyer in the world.
Yeah.
Now, let's be real with each other. On a scale of 1 to 10, there are lawyers that are 1s. There are lawyers that are 10s. There are lawyers that are 5s. What you're entitled to is a lawyer, someone that's passed the bar and has, a little experience. But what type of lawyer is that? I can't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Was it some guy or gal that just passed the bar a couple years ago? Or is it some guy that's been practicing almost 40 years? There's a difference.
Yeah.
But you're not entitled to the 40-year attorney. A lot of people think, well, all the attorneys are the same. They should be giving us the same level of service. Not true. It's not true. Have you ever been to a doctor or a dentist and you notice that sometimes one doctor is better than the other, or one dentist is better than the other, or you go get a massage someplace and one masseuse is better than the other, or you go to a cleaners and one cleaners is better than the other, or you go to a restaurant, one steakhouse is better than another, one burger place is better than another. It's the same for lawyers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? So if you get the really experienced lawyer, you consider yourself lucky. I would assume that you're not going to get that person, and that you need to help your lawyer as much as possible. And one of the things is, type out a story or speak out a story to them.
Okay.
You know what I also like to see? I like my clients to list what possible witnesses there could be. You know, because there might be some witness out there that I've never even thought about or heard about or read about.
Sorry, I'm taking notes as you're talking
Well,
about what to do.
you don't have to take notes. You know why? This is taped. It'll be on the internet forever. You
Oh,
can you
awesome.
you can watch it on 8 different social media platforms for the rest of your life.
And also, Shamara, just be careful because they send random people to monitor your home and to follow you everywhere, even to the grocery store. They literally violate you in every which way.
That is ridiculous.
So
But
anytime you
thank
see
you.
somebody on the street you don't know or somebody following you, pay attention. They even follow you from aisle to aisle listening to your calls.
Oh my God.
Yep. Yep. And they do that with everyone. You're not special. It's not like an individual type of thing. Everyone goes through the same thing. You just were not aware of it. That's all.
Thank you for the heads up because I had no idea.
Hey, Shamra, did you have any other questions for me? Because we're coming towards the end of the show.
Just is there any other things I should do to help my attorney with any of all of it?
How about starting with the story?
Okay.
Propose some witnesses. Give him or her a summary of your conversations with the social workers, and then go from there.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Listen, Shamra, I really appreciate you being on the show tonight and sharing your story with us. Keep us posted. I really would like to know what happens at your trial. And, you know, oh, there's one other thing that you should be doing. And I don't know if you mentioned this. Start testing and testing clean.
Yes.
Because if
I just got my referral put in and I'll be going in actually tomorrow on my birthday to be doing one.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you, Shamra. Good luck to you and keep in touch. Let us know what happened, huh? Okay?
I will. Thank you.
So, Miss G, LaDonna says that voice memo is a great idea. I'm going to pass that on. Yeah, that's really a good idea. Everybody has a smartphone. They can do the voice memo and they can send, you know, I have a couple clients that when they text me, they send me voice texts. They don't type it out. They send voice texts. And that's a really good idea because I can tell from listening to their voice, the tone, the pace, how their emphasis, how they really, are saying things or feeling about things. Have you ever gotten a text from someone and you don't know if they were mad or not mad? I had somebody today apologize to me about a text because they thought I was mad and I wasn't mad. So that just shows me I got to be careful about what I'm writing and typing because people take it all the way. You, people take it the wrong way. You know what I mean, Miss G? Yeah. All right, Miss G, thank you for coming on tonight and co-hosting with me. And we will see everyone tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, all.